everyone, thanks for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. Today is Wednesday, November 4th, and I am going to be doing some astrological highlights about the USA and this 2020 presidential election. And as much as I'd like to share my screen with you, I like being outside. So I don't have the Wi-Fi out here to be able to share my screen, be on Zoom, and go live on YouTube. So I'm figuring that out as I move forward. But, you know, I think this is also good for anyone who's not familiar with the language of astrology, because it's quite a study, and not the average person is going to be able to understand what that chart is showing. So I am going to get there and be able to demonstrate what I'm talking about today live. But for right now, I'm just going to go and share with you some notes, some research I did this morning on some charts. And I just want to say, if you like this video, if this helps you, my overall goal today is to give some sense of relief to everyone as to when we're going to have some closure and some be able to move ahead, let's say it that way, with all of this. So, but I started to say, if you like the video, if you find it helpful, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like and share it with your friends. And also check out turntothestars.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I much appreciate you all so much. So my YouTube episodes, I've continued to navigate in the most fun and informative way, and also to discuss historical timelines for our world, and just recently a lot for the United States. And so please be sure to subscribe to my Turn to the Stars channel on YouTube, because I'm going to be continuing to bring further insight for everyone. And so I wouldn't like you to miss out. So anyway, this episode, I'm briefly going to highlight some interesting information about the charts of both of our candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And I'm going to do it without bias. But before I go there, I think it's really important to discuss some of the astrological events that are taking place during this time. So as you expect, as you might expect, and since it's 2020, there's been some really unusual aspects which serve to forewarn us as to what to expect. So here's something that I found in my research. There was a curse that was put on the United States by Tecumseh. And typically, I don't give credence or believe in curses. However, I do know how powerful intentions are, being a shamanic practitioner, and just understanding the way energy works. And Tecumseh was a Native American or First Nations person who put a curse on the United States. And the legend is derived from hold on a second here, an argument that took place in 1809 between the U.S. President Harrison and Shawnee leader Tecumseh. Beginning with Harrison, all the presidents subsequently elected in a year ending in a 0 have died in office. 7 U.S. presidents in total. So the cycle breaks with Ronald Reagan, although he was wounded during an assassination attempt, and is also thought to have suffered with dementia before his term ended. So this could be considered as sort of a death, if you will. George W. Bush did not die in office either. However, there's still some debate about the validity of the election results from that year in 2000. Then how can we possibly forget the counting of the popular versus the electoral vote? Astrologers have noted that these election years also coincide with Jupiter, Saturn conjunction cycles. That means that Jupiter and Saturn being the two biggest planets in our solar system are standing side by side. So Jupiter and Saturn were conjunct 3 times in 2012 during the last election, and this year we've got the same thing going on, but with added Pluto. A final one occurs as we enter the sign of Aquarius on December 21st, which is also the winter solstice. So Jupiter and Saturn are both going to move into the sign of Aquarius at that time. So the possibility is there that the so-called curse will be ongoing with the 2020 election, or the intention of his anger toward what was happening to his people in his land and in his home. So let's consider Trump and Biden's ages. They're the oldest candidates to ever run for the presidency. Another important conjunction occurs between Jupiter and Pluto on November 12th. This is the third and final one this year. I talked about this 2 days ago in the recording that I made, which was live on YouTube. So these planets' final conjunctions punctuate and mark the start of a new cycle which has been in the works all year long. So Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, as you've heard me talk about so many times, have been together in the sign of Capricorn. They've been doing this dance together. They've been very strong. When you've got 3 planets together, it's called a stellium. Very powerful. And years ago, I had an astrologer, Donna, I can't remember her last name, who was an esoteric astrologer who was on my TV show, and she said that whenever you have 3 planets together in a birth chart, a stellium, that's where the chart is dancing and it calls for your attention. And we've had that going on all year. So these planets' final conjunctions punctuate and mark the start of a new cycle which has been in the works all year long. And as you've heard me explain in previous episodes, the goal of these 3 planets is to restructure our government, our business sectors, and society, represented by the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn's the most unevolved sign of all, so this is an incredible time of evolution. So it's fitting that the final aspect happens on the heels of a major election. The final effect on election day is Mercury. It's going to be moving direct, and you heard me say that 2 days ago. In November, the 3rd from its final 2020 retrograde. So this usually indicates areas that involve communication will be unclear, and events leading up to the election will be unclear with regards to ballot issues because of this confusion and miscommunication. And Mercury is also squaring Saturn. That's what I talked about on Monday on my show. Mercury is communication. Saturn is restriction, suppression, difficulties, and it indicates that, oh, excuse me, got a hair in my mouth, indicates that, there may be authority figures that have to intervene. So we're likely not to see any relief until Mercury moves out of its retrograde, which is the beginning, and its shadow pattern. So with Mercury retrograde, we have a before shadow, which is an introduction of an energy which we're going to be going back over during the retrograde, and then after the retrograde we have an after shadow, and the after shadow ends on November 19th. And then we're going to, and then Mercury's going to be fully in new territory. And that territory, November the 21st, is the day the sun moves out of the sign of Scorpio and into the sign of Sagittarius. Scorpio is the sign of secrets, and Sagittarius is the sign of truth. So by this time in these planetary positions, we should know the election outcome. Following the election, a lunar eclipse affecting North America, meaning us here in the United States, occurs on November 30th. And I'm going to be going into depth on that in future shows. The moon is a sensitive indicator representing the public and its sentiments, and this is a lunar eclipse occurring on a full moon, and it's a north node lunar eclipse, meaning that it's going to take us in a new direction as a society. So following the election, the lunar eclipse indicates the public needs the entire month of November to basically come to terms with the election results. And there may be a sense of relief and acceptance on the horizon that happens in December. So the aspects at inauguration on January 20th, 2021 also signify possible outcomes. In the few days following Trump's 2017 inauguration, we experienced a major planetary conjunction of Mars and Uranus within the sign of Aries. And when I get to be able to show you these charts on the screen, I will do that. But like I said, for right now, I'm still in the process of learning this whole process and to go live on YouTube. So please be patient with me. But anyway, following Trump's 2017 inauguration, we experienced a major planetary conjunction of Mars and Uranus within the sign of Aries. And this also coincided with a solar eclipse. And so these events ushered in a new era, as all conjunctions and eclipses are pivotal points. And this is an interesting point. Eclipses are called trump cards. They bring incredible change. A trump card, in here we have somebody by the name of Trump running for president, again, for a second term. So he's definitely a trump card. But he's, I'm going to go further into talk about his chart moving forward. As we all know, it's been a dynamic 4 years. This is the way of Aries energy. And there's another Mars-Uranus conjunction occurring exactly on Inauguration Day in 2021 in the sign of Taurus. So this could be the end and indicates a different new beginning for the U.S. presidency. The moon is void of course from 8:30 Eastern Time, 8:30 a.m. until 1 o'clock. If the inauguration takes place during this time, like it did for Obama, it's going to have to be redone. Moon void of course does not support starting something new. It's a time for completion. And if you look back historically, Obama, his first inauguration took place during a moon void of course, and they ended up redoing it. And that's completely a signature of the moon void of course. So I hope that they do this after 1 o'clock. If there's an astrologer involved, they'll do it after 1 o'clock. There should be. At 1 p.m., the moon moves fully into Taurus on Inauguration Day. This is interesting also as the upcoming conjunction occurs near the moon, which is at 1 degree Taurus, and exact within 1 degree to Biden's birth moon sign of Taurus. And I've talked about that before on past shows. The moon's positioning is always significant with regard to anything to do with the United States. Since the sun in the United States birth chart, meaning our spirit, our drive, our will, our identity, is in the sign of Cancer. So on July 4th, as mentioned astrologically, the moon expresses public sentiment And the conjunction with the moon would seem to be positive for Joe Biden. So let's explore the charts of, what I did is I took a look at Biden's chart, and I took a look at Trump's chart, and I took a look at the United States chart. And this is what I do with every client I work with. I take a look at their birth chart. If they've got questions about relationships, we'll take a look at a composite, combining two charts. And it's good to look at progressions also. There's so many different types of tools you can use with astrology, but this is what I thought, this is what I do for my clients. This is what I'm going to do for this event, this situation, this experience that we're all together going through right now. So here's some further insight. Donald Trump, as you heard me talk about before, was born on a Sagittarius moon, and also a total lunar eclipse was occurring at that time. And this is typically a indication that there is something very major about to be underway, and that was his birth. When you're born on an eclipse, there's going to be some major important themes in your life, which are extremely emotional. And the moon, as I said before, is someone who may be put in the public eye, because the moon is a strong significant and significator in a chart that you do when you're looking at the whole. So Trump's south node was conjunct his Sagittarius moon, and gives us clues that he will derive much sustenance through being adored and being in the public eye, and that he has a lot to share. Sagittarius is a sign of a politician. Sagittarius is a sign of someone who seeks the truth and looks forward. They're emotionally, he is somebody that's always looking forward, and he's up, they're very optimistic, and can actually be called Pollyanna because of their optimism. But this also indicates that he is emotionally capable of witty sarcasm, being very direct. He's a straight shooter and having no filter. And that's due to the Sagittarius influence, which can be interpreted as insensitive. It's a fire sign. It is a sign that's direct and straight to the point. So we can certainly see that in his demeanor. His north node conjunct his Saturn placement in the 10th house. So his north node, Sun and Uranus in his birth chart are in what we would call his Saturn house, the 10th house. And his conjunct, as I said, to Uranus are the big indicators of the theme in his chart. So these indicate that his ultimate goal, his career ambition, recognition are set things, and that they're actually, he's interested in doing good. He's interested and he's driven to change the world. He's interested in leading us forward, and that's through Gemini is the signature of communication that's connected with data communication, and Uranus there, he wants to take us to Mars. I don't know that I want to go to Mars, but all the fire signs are pioneers of the zodiac. So now Uranus rules also, and he has that up in his 10th house, Aquarius, and it also leads his chart pattern. So Aquarian ideals are top priority for Trump, and he has the ability to be a great humanitarian. His birth Jupiter is in Libra and in agreement. Jupiter in Libra is somebody who believes in making things fair and equal. So this further solidifies the odds. He will be lucky and enjoy much wealth and success from his trials his tribulations, and his ambitions. This is one of the significators. And I usually don't talk about fixed stars, but in my research to put this together to come and create this video today, I looked at the fixed star Regulus, which is also known as Kingmaker. And at the time of his birth, it was right on top of his birth spot, his ascendant or his rising sign. And this further describes a person capable of winning at most every challenge. This would be his trump card, so to speak. And so it seemed like that was really important toward this whole time that we're experiencing. So the theme is complete by the positioning of his first house of identity being at 29 degrees Leo in 55 minutes. At the last possible 4 minutes of Leo, or of this sign, indicating in this lifetime he experiences much urgency to be master of his ego. There's when we have planets, or especially with the ascendant at a very late degrees, or the sun sign at a very late degrees of a sign, it's an indication that there's something that this spirit, this soul, wants to complete in this lifetime. This type of chart is not easy for any opposition, and in his progress chart, the moon and Mercury are both nearing the end of a 2 to 3 year period, and they've been aspecting his natal Uranus. This has been happening during his presidency, so we have witnessed his communication style. Mercury's influence shows his significant and signature ups and downs. Uranus's influence keeps the public engaged, which is the moon. So it's as though his normal supercharged energy has been on steroids. That's Uranus's effect. It brings out the crazy, unexpected responses. So Trump's progress ascendant at 29 degrees, and Libra is currently exact with his birth rising sign or ascendant at that advanced 29 degrees of Leo. And so this is now working to bring even greater mastery to his self-expression, positive energy, and creative potential. So these progressions are where a person's soul has progressed to at this time. And so the progressions to his chart have really set the stage for the major personality energy we're seeing and witnessing from him. And that's not all. The chart has a life of its own. During this election time, various transits are also aspecting with his chart. So Trump is experiencing a no overturn during this election time, and that usually figures very suspiciously. The transiting North Node just passed over his birth sun sign in Gemini, so he's at the point in his life where the transiting nodes will conjunct his natal nodes at 20 degrees this year, as mentioned in previous shows that I've recorded. And you just can't make this stuff up. It's, like I said, if I could show you the chart right now, but I'd much rather be outside. The energy today and last night was just overwhelming. I don't think a lot of people slept. So the transiting moon is also within an orb of its north node on election day and today, November 4th. So he's in the final approach of his life's goal and destiny. It would seem the public, as well as fate, as well as karma, are all indicators symbolically and represented here will decide if Trump's ultimate destiny is determined that he should continue in 2020 as the U.S.'s designated leader. So I'm trying to shuffle my notes, and the wind is picking up out here. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I hope you can see the sunshine for anybody that's not in sunshine right now. Sending you some sunshine. The first thing noticeable about Joe Biden's chart is how it has a basic pattern set up that is somewhat comparable to the USA birth chart of July 4th, 1776. Both of these start off with Sagittarius rising, and so Jupiter, being the ruling planet of Sagittarius, is ruling his first house, the house of his self, his personality, the way he projects himself. Both charts are unusual in that they each have 3 key aspects, and Chiron is a major aspect point in both charts. And something that's even more interesting is that both charts have an aspect pattern which I call a yod to the moon. And a yod is what astrologers call the finger of God, and it's formed by 3 planets. Two of the planets are forming an inconjunct, or a 150-degree angle to another planet. And both of those planets that formed those inconjunct patterns are sextile each other. And this is called a finger of God. Yod is a Hebrew word and it means the finger of God. And so inconjuncts, or you can also call them quincunx, are difficult patterns. They're difficult because they can make you feel, I have one in my chart, and I have many clients that have like 3, and it can make you feel during a time of change like we're vibrating like a tuning fork, like boom. And so it makes us feel as if, people typically with a yod in their chart, and the United States has a yod in its chart, during times of change and adjustment, we may appear like we're crazy. We're not. It's just that the effects of the change are really affecting us. But inconjuncts, even though they're difficult, they exist to build character. So I have understood mine every time I go through change. On the surface, I'm a Gemini, so I tend to adjust, adapt right away, but underneath, it takes me a while for my body and my emotions to catch up, because that yod is right to my moon, to my sun, and to Uranus. So it's pretty intense. So I can explain that feeling to you. We're all experiencing it here in the United States. And the similarities between Joe Biden and the USA birth chart may or may not indicate a fated synchronicity, but definitely jump out as unusual and important to take a look at. So Joe Biden has a stellium of planets, and I just talked about the stellium. That means we've got a collection of planets all together. He actually has 3 and 4 being a little bit wide with his Mars, but that means this is a powerful spot in his chart. And so he has the Sun, he has Mars, Venus, and Mercury all in Scorpio. And these are all our personal planets. So this represents for him in the 12th house that he's got a lot of secrets. There's a lot that's hidden. There's a lot that's secret. He keeps a lot of secrets. And there's a lot that goes on below the surface for him. This is a man that needs time every single day. He needs his alone time in order to find some sense of balance. So this can be a strength, but it can also be a weakness. Definitely would seem to be much more on a personal level that he experiences, and he does not show outwardly. So Biden's Neptune is in the 10th house of ambition and career, and indicates he may be a master of creating illusions for a living. But it also can indicate that he has a lot of compassion for the world. Neptune is compassion, unconditional love. So it can indicate both of those things. Both Jupiter and Pluto are in his 8th house, which further describes someone who's secretive, shrewd, careful, has a good sense of observation. His chart seems to be in stark contrast to Trump, whose personality is completely an open book. He says what's on his mind, even if it's outlandish. He says what's on his mind. Biden's, and that, it's an interesting point. We all have a way of perceiving things, and it's never the same. So I'm just bringing the facts here. Biden's progressed Mercury is forming in opposition with his birth Jupiter, which is the ruler of his chart. So his progressed Mercury aspects influence can last for up to 6 months. And this will help bring mental function and communications to an exceptionally clear and unblurred level, and influence new levels of faith. And with Jupiter's influence great understanding also for him. On election day, which was yesterday, the transiting sun was conjunct Biden's birth Mars, and this is a strong and positive aspect for him as a candidate. Looking at the composite chart for each president as compared to the USA birth chart, there are more remarkable similarities than not. So the composite charts are each forming a funnel pattern to Uranus, and the focus is both to the moon, is both from the moon. So the composite, and I know this is some astrology jargon here, but I'm trying to bring to you the most important points about this whole experience, this whole historical time in our here in the United States and on this earth. The composite for Biden, meaning the comparison of his chart with the United States chart, does incorporate the similarities between those two charts, which includes Sagittarius rising. So the United States has Sagittarius as its birth spot, as the rising sign, as the ascendant, and Biden has Sagittarius as his ruling sign, his birth spot, the ascendant. So the Jupiter rulership indicates there's an influence for growth and also challenge expressed by the yod to the moon. So in a final analysis, there are positive indicators and challenges in play for both Trump and Biden. As you see, it appears to be a very close election. If you've tuned into the news, I had to tune out to the news. It's a bit overwhelming, very overwhelming, in fact. But, it's important for us. This is our homeland. So, as you can see, it appears to be a very close election. The polarization of our country is really the overwhelming issue, and it is all in an effort to fine-tune our country. So the candidates themselves represent how polar opposites we have become. But the thing we should remember, the composite charts really do have fundamental similarities. And so we have to appreciate this process, but we also need to work to come to terms with whatever the outcome is. It's really important that we all stay united. I really don't think, with the age of Aquarius right around the corner, with Jupiter and Saturn moving into Aquarius, that we're going to have any repeats of history. So we need to really just stay present, and we certainly are all feeling the effects due to our country's first Pluto return, which is going to be exact by February of 2022. This is a monumental, very monumental time to the United States and its importance on this planet. So this is an important milestone, as well, because the official beginning of Pluto moving within orbit to return to the place it was at the time of the United States birth is so significant. I mean, when you have the two most powerful aspects in astrology are conjunctions and oppositions, and so they're the most dynamic, really very dynamic. And we are, as a country, in a initial ingress into the sign of Aquarius. Remember this song, The Age of Aquarius? This is the dawning of the Age of Aquarius. It truly is. It's time seems to move so slow sometimes, but it is speeding up. It's going even faster with the Age of Aquarius approaching. Nothing is going to occur in the way it has in the past. That's very important for everybody to remember. Uranus means change. We have no choice but to change, to wake up, to realize that it is a time of uniting, a time of looking at things from a different perspective, a time for the truth to find its way into each of our hearts. So at the time of the United States birth in 1776, Pluto was in the dawning energy because it was at 27 degrees of Capricorn and cusping into the age of Aquarius. So our country has led the way to the new age. Our country has much work to do together right now, and for 1 month after the election, which was yesterday, and until December of 2024, when Pluto makes its final entrance into Aquarius. So the election of 2024 will be equally as important as this one, if not more. So 2020 is a microcosm of the tenacity required of all of us over the next 4 years. So with that said, I think that's enough for today, but I would love to hear any comments, any suggestions, any points of view. I have not made a prediction about the United States election because there's just so much division within the United States right now, and I like to remain on equal territory, so to speak. And I do have an opinion, and this is the one I'm going to share. The only opinion I'm going to share is that whoever gets elected, I think that their running mate, their VP running mate, is going to end up taking the presidency at some point, because, and I said this on a prior show, because Biden is experiencing some major health issues right now, and Trump has some upcoming health issues that will be of great concern. The amount of stress this puts on a person's vitality is tremendous, and he is a human being like all of us, and there's so much that he can withstand. And remember, these are the two oldest candidates running for president, and so Trump is in what we have a Neptune transit, going to square his sun and square his moon. So that's a lot of stress, and it does put somebody. It can bring great suffering. It can bring great resolve once it's over, but being that his sun, his Uranus, and his North Node are in the very top of his chart, meaning up in the 10th house, so he's in the public eye. He's meant to be in the public eye. He's meant to be recognized. He's meant to be noticed. And he is actually a very brilliant man. Any time I see someone's sun sign right next to Uranus, that's a signature of a doctor, a signature of a brilliant person, a signature of an inventor. So with that said, whoever becomes whoever is elected by the United States, I think my opinion is that we're going to end up having the need for someone to step in who can uh, take the reins, so to speak. So thanks for tuning in to Turn to the Stars. I appreciate you all. If you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and a share, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can go to turntothestars.com and click on the menu, click on YouTube, and go right to my YouTube channel and subscribe right there. I love to have you join me. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, turn to the stars and you'll find your answers there. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you very soon.